If I remember correctly, we did not complete last week's sheets. I'd like to do that first. I'd like to look at a, a kind of a well-known story from rabbinic literature that illustrates something, and I didn't print it out, so let me get it to the. We were in that final section of of 27 to 33 last week. And the phrase that caught my eye was one that I think I was taught already in Israel when I was in 10th grade by my teacher, my mentor, Rabbi Dr. Chaim Perry. As I mentioned to another group on Monday, I was really fortunate to spend the year, my 10th grade in Israel, with some wonderful educators who uh, made sure that we learned a rather lofty version of Hebrew, a very rich version of Hebrew. Perhaps because they were both, the Hebrew teacher herself was Orthodox, quite Orthodox, and the head of the program who taught us a lot of the classes as well, Chaim Perry, was modern Orthodox. Both of them were steeped in that kind of education, and we were taught lots and lots of phrases, which only some of them now I know come from Proverbs. And one of these was sonemat not yichya, right? The person who a key to a good life is not to expect gifts. That would be my rephrasing. And so I'd like us to read through this story, which is in the Babylonian Talmud. It's a difficult story, but it's actually well known, and this is, often I have an agenda of widening everybody's Jewish literacy when it comes to stories that people know that perhaps they should know from the Jewish tradition. Les, could I ask you to read this story for us?
Sure. Rabbi Nehunia ben Hakana was asked by his disciples, by way of which virtue were you blessed with longevity? He said to them, in all my days, I never attained veneration at the expense of my fellow's degradation, nor did my fellow's curse ever go up with me upon my bed, and I was always open-handed with my money. I never attained veneration at the expense of my fellow's denigration. This is referring to conduct such as that of Rav Huna, who was carrying a hoe over his shoulder as he returned from his work. Rav Chama bar Hanilai came and, out of respect for his teacher, took the hoe from him to carry it for him. Rav Huna said to him, if you are accustomed to carry such objects in your own city, you may carry it, but if not, then for me to be venerated through your denigration is not pleasing to me. Nor did I ever allow the resentment caused by my fellow's curse to go up with me upon my bed. This is referring to conduct such as that of Mar Zutra. When he would go to bed at night, he would first say, I forgive anyone who has vexed me. And I was always open-handed with my money. This is referring to conduct such as that which the master said, Job was open-handed with his money, as he would always leave at least a peruta of his money with the shopkeeper.
Okay, let's just take a break here. I mean, nice wisdom, not necessarily directly related to our piece, of course. Any comments about this? Okay, then why don't you go ahead, Les?
Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nehunia the Great, he said to him, by which virtue were you blessed with longevity? Rabbi Nehunia's attendants came and started berating Rabbi Akiva, for they felt that he was acting disrespectfully by highlighting Rabbi Nehunia's old age. Rabbi Akiva ran away from them, and he climbed up and sat upon the top of a date tree. From there he said to Rabbi Nehunya, "My teacher, I have a question about the verse concerning the daily offering that states one lamb. If it is stated lamb in the singular, why is it also one? Why is it stated one? Isn't this superfluous?" Upon hearing Rabbi Akiva's scholarly question, Rabbi Nehunya said to his attendants, "He is clearly a young Torah scholar. Let him be." And he said to him, "The word one teaches that the lamb should be the unique one of its flock." With regard to the original question, Rabbi Nehunya said to him, "In all my days, I have never accepted gifts, nor was I ever inflexible by exacting a measure of retribution against those who have wronged me. And I was always open-handed with my money. I never accepted gifts." This is referring to conduct such as that of Rabbi Elazar. When they would send him gifts from the house of Nasai, he would not take them. And when they would invite him in, he would not go there, as he considered hospitality to be a type of gift. He would say to them, "Is it not pleasing to you that I should live, as it is written, 'He that hates gifts shall live'?" In contrast, it was reported about Rabbi Zaira that when they would send him gifts from the house of the Nasai, he would not accept them. But when they would invite him, he would go there. He said, "They are honored by my presence, therefore my visiting is not considered like I am taking a gift from him." This sounds like Supreme Court justices trying to justify gifts from people.
Yeah. I was thinking of that. It sounds like BB. Sounds like a lot of things. There's a lot of things, I'm friends over the years. We've had a lot of lunches, the clergy and I, and also personally with city council members, and I can never pay for that. We can never treat them right. It's always
You
got they
can
go,
if it's less than you can if it's less than $50.
but they're very careful about it. All of them are very, very careful about it, and to me, I'm kind of reminded of this. Yeah. So you can, but you don't. But they don't need. It just
Right.
opens it up, and so much of the so much of what we hear about politicians, especially local politicians in Riverside County, has to do with this kind of thing as well. Any comments or questions about this?
Just by the way, for elected officials, no gift can be more than $50, and the total gifts in a 12-month period must be below $450 or $500, and you have to report every single gift above $50 to the federal election board, the state election board,
Okay,
for
well,
what
good
it's.
to know. Yeah. Did that include you when you were elected?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Amalka, you want to read from Rambam for us? We just need you to unmute, please.
Perfectly righteous men and men of spiritual stature would not give gifts from other men. Instead, they would trust in God, blessed be his name, and not in generous men. And Proverbs 15:27 states, "One who hates gifts will live."
Right. So another thing to sorry, I've been, so many of you know, I've been hit with a horrible case of allergies in the last few days. Um, so there's this ideal of piety, of self-sufficiency and piety. And what's interesting, and I'm thinking right now of Haredi culture in Israel, suddenly this doesn't apply at all. It's as if it's God's will. God will provide for them, but God's not providing for these people. It's the state of Israel providing for them. It's the people paying taxes. This is not a tirade against Haredim per se. It's just that in that world, there's a lot of talk about bitachon, about not bitachon as security, but bitachon as faith. You should have faith in a Kodesh Baruch Hu, in God, that God will provide. but it's like that joke about the guy who, in the flood. Um, and it's interesting how the state of Israel becomes almost invisible. It's just this thing, in other words, God is working through the state of Israel to provide these people the same state that they reject. That's some of my thinking right now, because yeah, amongst all the more prevalent, the more pronounced news items about Israel, whether it's the Gaza Strip or Bibi or the firing of the head of the Mossad or the reform of the judicial system, there's this issue of Haredim, and there's a lot of talk about them not going to the army, but there's a bigger, and by the way, it's part of the West Bank settlement project as well, which is to a great part Orthodox as well, Orthodox side. And God will provide for us. It's the state of Israel providing. The state of Israel means that it's a state of Israel for all of its citizens, and this has a lot to do with it's often now harder for me to read news out of Israel than it is from the United States. Um, yeah. Anyway, why don't we go ahead and do that last one, Malka.
Rabbi, it's also, I mean, you touched upon this, but it seems to me, what about the tithe? Is that not a gift, or is that just considered when giving money to the temple? It was a sacrifice. I mean, how do they judge? I mean, that's how it supported the priesthood, is by gifts from the people.
Yes, but the priesthood was giving service to the people. It's like in the ideal situation of paying taxes. You pay taxes, they pick up your garbage, they give you, well, they don't give you your water, but the whatever you pay municipal the taxes, they'll pave the roads.
In that case, it was an exchange. They paid into the priesthood, and the priesthood provided them a service.
Yes,
so for which there was no exchange. I got it.
yeah, but I think that's how I would see it. Yeah.
What about when we give gifts to one another at Purim?
Oh, good point.
Yeah. So again, all these things, of course, they're not truisms in that they're absolutely true all the time, right? I think as a way of life. The thing of giving gifts at Purim is it's reciprocal. Not that you need to give something to somebody who gave to you. That's what happens, though. From a first of all, from a purely halachic point of view, which I'm not going to do, you know me well, but I could argue, well, that's a mitzvah, almost a positive commandment is not one of the 613, but that's a specific biblical precept to go ahead and do it. And this is from wisdom literature. So when you have a specific positive, then that overrules the negative commandment. I could play that halacha game, but I would say differently that the exchanging of gifts on Purim is not to get some. There is giving to the poor. That is supporting to the poor, but the exchanging of gifts is to get people to mingle with each other, to rejoice with each other, to celebrate with each other. I would say to have a meal with each other. When we were in yeshiva, the custom was when we didn't have offer Purim. We'd read the Megillah, and then we'd sit at lunch, and there was, I think whatever it was, there was a cake, there was something that was special, and remember, each of us would take something from our plate and give it to the next guy, right? Give it to two other people. We exchanged the food that we were all given by the dining room together, so we could be yotzei, uh, yeah, so I think, and that way, I think that they're different, Malka.
Mm. Okay.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and read the last part, the Pirkei Avot?
There are 4 types of characters in human beings. One that says, mine is mine and yours is yours. This is a commonplace type, and some say that this is a Sodom type of character. One that says, mine is yours and yours is mine, is an unlearned person from Haaretz. One that says, mine is yours and yours is a pious person. One that says, mine is mine and yours is mine, is a wicked person.
Yeah, I know many of us have seen this dozens of times. Does it absolutely make sense to us, or is there some questions?
It depends on the situation.
Okay, for instance?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about property, this is your house and this is your house and my house is my house and your house is your house. Um, I wouldn't say that's Sodom type of character, would you?
No, that's always I've always stuck on that. It seemed like that's being a normal person.
Right.
Maybe not a supermensch, but or maybe the one who added that comment, because it doesn't seem to be as part of the original saying. And these are early, this is the earliest level of rabbinic literature that we have from Avot. Is maybe trying to say that in essence that's what the super egoism, self-centeredness of the Sodomites is what brought about their downfall. It started with that. Maybe that's I probably heard that someplace before, but that in other words,
On the
it,
other hand, Mikasa Sukasa is the pious person.
yeah, and you know, and I remember somebody saying the one that mine is yours and yours is mine is an Amaretz. Amaretz, I've said many times, Amaretz in Yiddish means an idiot, a simpleton, an idiot, not an idiot, but a simpleton. In rabbinic literature, it actually refers to a particular class of people who were the relatively wealthy farmer or landholders of the Galil. At least that's one of the theories. And they did not accept they did not accept the leadership of the sages of the Talmud. But in reading these all these years, and I heard it said in the meaning that Amaretz is a stupid person, people would say this. There were from people, probably Hasidic people I had contact with when I was a teenager, said this about kibbutznikim. In the kibbutz, what is mine is yours, and what is yours is mine. They're idiots. That's what he wants to say. Yeah, I'm not saying that myself. Anything else on this?
What does Am Haaretz refer to?
So Amaretz literally means the people of the land. And there, one theory, that's what I mentioned, that they were the people, the landowners in the Galil, who did not accept the authority of the rabbis. So they're the other. They're semi-bad guys. They're the ones, by the way, who don't tithe, who were suspected of not tithing and not letting the land rest on the seventh year.
Was there a tradition of tenant landlords and tenant farmers?
There must have been, but I don't know much about it. Right? There is halacha according to that, so there must have been, but I don't know that it was like a feudal society, if that's what you're thinking of, like what we know from Europe.
I wonder, in the story of Dina, where it says she went out to see the Am Haaretz, you think it's related to this Am Haaretz?
I think she went out to see Benot Haaretz, didn't she?
Oh, Benot Haaretz. Okay, but it was the Am
Yeah.
Haaretz.
So yeah, and also this Am Haaretz being used here is rabbinic and not biblical. I don't know if Am Haaretz I don't is used in a biblical sense at all. I don't
When
Okay.
a little
Yeah.
off topic, but when I think of tenant farmers, I think of sort of pre-state Israel, when you had a lot of Arabs who were farming land owned by Ottoman landlords, and then Jewish settlers came in and bought the land and kicked the tenant farmers off. And that, of course, was viewed by the Arabs as displacement. So I'm kind of figuring out how that fits into this, if it does at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, and I would imagine that whatever views on that come up are greatly influenced by one's politics. Yeah.
Well, and a lease of land or a land is, if the person owns the land, they have the right to do what they want with it, I guess.
Yeah, and that's often brought in defense of Jewish taking over of land that was bought in different parts of the different times of the 20th century, say in Jerusalem, that one section in the East Jerusalem was it was a hotspot a few years ago. So people will bring that up. It's fair and square, except for there's no way for the original owners of Arab lands, they have no recourse themselves. Now, there's only recourse for Jews to reclaim buildings that they bought over the centuries, over the decades when the land wasn't under the auspices of the State of Israel, but it's not reciprocal.
You talked about Sheikh Jarrah.
I am talking about Sheikh Jarrah, but all in many different places. Yeah. Ir Amim is an organization that deals with that. Okay, and speaking of land, it's not exactly the topic, but some of you may have seen that we're going to be showing No Other Land, the Academy Award documentary this last year about human rights abuses in Palestine, Israel, Palestine, and in the West Bank. And I will be, as an American Israeli, I will be dialoguing with a woman named Aziza Hassan, who is the director. She's a Palestinian American. She's the director of New Ground, Muslim Jewish Dialogue Organization. I think it's based in Los Angeles. So she'll be. We'll see the film on May 24th, Shabbat 2 in the afternoon. This is something we're doing together with all our usual partners, faith communities here in Palm Springs. We're doing it at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. And this will be the first of what we hope to be more or less monthly gatherings there, with the goal of it's not just the cultural side of seeing movies together, but discussing some of the more difficult issues. And it is our attempt, at least, to try to bring in a part of the public that usually doesn't come to the Palm Springs Cultural Center, say from the northern part of Palm Springs, African American neighbors, Spanish speaking. Yes, Les.
One, is it open to the public? Two, is there a charge? And three, are you wanting to limit the publicity so that you don't get unruly types attending?
One, Magdalena's working on, not one, Magdalena's working on the flyer right now. And she needs some more information from me. Thank you, Magdalena. And yes, it is open to the public, but there will be an RSVP process so we can know to ask Michael which I think we can use any of the halls there, but I don't want to have a half empty one, so we kind of want to have RSVP. There will probably be a $10 suggested donation. It would be nice we have somebody, one of the churches is covering the cost of the movie itself. But I need to cover the cost of the speaker, which I hadn't thought of originally because I thought it doesn't matter why. But so we're going to have to recover some of those costs. We're a suggested donation of $10. And as far as publicity, I don't know what to do about that. I'm happy to. I don't really have anybody here in the desert to talk about that kind of particular thing. That is a question. I just figured that I don't know. It's a good question, but it will be open to the public in general. Yeah.
Are you going to advertise it to the Jewish Federation?
And no, I don't think so. I have not found that, while the Federation sponsors one of the things that we do, which is the interfaith dialogue, it's the people that read the Federation newspaper, we have not found over the last 6 years that paying for advertisement in any way has helped us. It's just not a good investment. So I don't know where else we'll get it. We're working on that, and we have the cultural center also, which will advertise this, which and their stuff reaches a lot of people. But happy to talk to you separately about this if you have certain ideas, as we've already begun talking. Okay, anything else? All right, let's get to today's sheet then. One of the things we've been speaking about since the beginning is where does God play a part in all of this wisdom stuff? And while God pops up here and there, and we have heard those statements, I think we can agree that most of what we've seen, whether it's 60 or 70 or 80% or even 90%, has been without God. It's been humanistic wisdom. And suddenly in this chapter, there's a strong presence of God, and as we'll see as well, God and King. And lots of different views on where this may have come from, but I broke this down in the way that as I usually do, looking for keys in the words themselves, and there's other ways of breaking this down. But I chose this one, so why don't we go ahead with it? And Richard, do you want to read today? 1 through 7?
A man may arrange his thoughts, but what he says depends on the Lord. All the ways of a man seem right to him, but the Lord probes motives. Entrust your affairs to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. The Lord made everything for a purpose, even the wicked for an evil day. Every haughty person is an abomination to the Lord. Assuredly, he will not go unpunished. Iniquity is expiated by loyalty and faithfulness, and evil is avoided through fear of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased with a man's conduct, he may turn even his enemies into allies.
Okay. First impressions. Eileen, go ahead.
It seems like it's taking the burden off of the individual and putting it on the Lord.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
can't
it is.
agree with.
It is kind of theocentric. Yes, it is indeed. But is it taking taking actual responsibility off of the person, or maybe reframing it? So let's take a look at the. Go ahead.
Well, ultimately, it's man's choice, I would think. But faith in God determines how he would act. If he wants to be pleasing in the sight of the Lord.
Or if he wants to succeed as well. If
Right.
he's yeah. So let's take it two at a time as it seems to be intended in this whole section of Mishlei. All right. L'adam marchei lev u'me'adonai maneh Hashem. Sound familiar to anybody? I think it's from. It's not. It's pretty sure it's from. I forgot to look it up, but I'm pretty sure it's from the High Holiday Liturgy. Um, I have I have memories of me chanting this out loud, which means it's probably from the High Holiday. Yeah, maybe Slichot. In any case, it found its way into liturgy, and not that many verses from Proverbs have. So, yes. Um,
Is that saying that man can think something, but if he actually says it, it really it's the way God intended? In other words, your thoughts are your own, but when you actually actively say something, somehow there's this spiritual connection there.
Yeah, so it is a bit of a question. If we go according to what Eileen said, for instance, it could be you may have great intentions. You may have arranged your thoughts. I'm going to have the conversation this way, but it turned out differently. I mean, who of us has that not happened to, right? Right, where we go into especially a difficult situation. We're going to do this, but and then we said, yeah, I should have said this. It happens to me every time I do public speaking. I have in my mind, of course, it's my fault because I don't write stuff down. I don't know how to read off of the page, but have in my mind, I want to do this and this and this, and then afterwards, I'll end something. I said, oh, I meant that I forgot that story or that particular symbol, Yeah, so that's taking the responsibility off to the individual. You had good intentions, but it came out wrong or differently than you wished. Um, another way to look at this is maybe a Freudian way of looking at this, right? You think that you think that you know your mind, whatever, but very often, or from time to time, you'll have a Freudian slip. Your tongue will slip and say something which is really deep, which before Freud here it's not it's a theological thing. It's God made me do it. So it's I don't know. That's what I can come up with.
Maybe it's
Anything
like the story of Balaam, where he had every intention of cursing Israelites, but God turned it completely around and he blessed them.
else? So yeah, Balaam or Bilam is a prophet, so he does echo. He's a mouthpiece of God. Um,
Mhm.
so it may be, Malka, you're saying that's the message of the story of Bilam, is that and yeah, I mean certainly this dovetails with that. Yeah, absolutely. Um, all right, and then the next couplet, right? All the ways of man they seem right to him, but it actually, again, I'm thinking from a Freudian point of view. You think you're doing the right thing, but is it really what you say you're doing, or is it really all about you? Is it for ego purposes? Is it for other things, other ulterior motives?
Mhm.
Right. I don't have much to say about entrust your affairs to the Lord and your plans will succeed, but um, the next one is a little bit challenging as well. In Hebrew, Kol Pa'al Adonai L'Ma'anehu L'Gam Rasha Liyom Ra'ah. Right?
Mhm.
The Lord made everything for a purpose. L'Ma'anehu is for God's own sake. We'll see in a second. Rashi says something differently, but it's the only time if it does mean for a purpose, this is the only place in the Hebrew Bible that it appears this in this meaning, Laman, and possibly in the Book of Wisdom of Sirach, which is not in our canon. There's a usage of it like this as well. And even the wicked for an evil day. What does that mean? Even the wicked for an evil day? It's continuing the what was said in the first line. There's a purpose for everything. It's almost like that thing in Ecclesiastes. And there's even a purpose for the wicked person on the evil day. How do we understand that?
Well, I certainly don't like it. I mean, it's like like people like if you look at the Holocaust, that was meant so that it could lead to the creation of the state of Israel. It's it's just it's a way of thinking that I personally don't bothers me.
Mhm.
I mean, this idea of you meant it for evil, but God's going to use it for good. That whole type of theology is it just seems weird to me.
Kind of apologetic. It's retro, after it's happened, it's a way to justify what's happened.
Exactly. Exactly.
But the Tanakh does say that God created evil. He created everything. We say it in the liturgy, right? We're changing Isaiah's words because Isaiah says he created evil, but in the liturgy we say he created all things. We change that word, but
Oh,
Isaiah is
Oseh,
saying he created evil.
right. Oseh Shalom uvoret hara.
Hmm.
God has
Rabbi
made.
Malka, just to clarify, I'm not saying that God that this it isn't this way. I'm just saying I don't like it.
Okay.
No.
And then there's also Malka, there's a difference between Ra, evil, and a Rasha, who theoretically at least could have chosen the evil path. Right? The wicked are not necessarily created, they've chosen wickedness, they've chosen evil.
Hmm.
Um, If you look at Rashi has a different way of looking at this. At least the Manehu part. The Lord made everything for his praise. That's his translation. That would be his translation. He made everything for his praise, as in Psalms. Anu ladunai. So everything is for God's praise, which means it's even more difficult that the evil, understanding that the wicked for an evil day is for God's praise. Another explanation he has is to testify, not to praise, but to testify concerning God. That is to say that his works testifies concerning him, about his mighty acts. Both of those interpretations are found in the Midrash, which means that Rashi had a hard time finding. The reason I brought this, seems like Rashi had a hard time understanding really what this verse is about. As did Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra takes a verse from Deuteronomy to be my vengeance and recompense the time of that their foot falters. Yea, their day of disaster is near, and destiny rushes upon them. It's in one of the poems at the end of Deuteronomy. It means, says Ibn Ezra, they will fall and be unable to stand. And then he says the meaning of at the time is similar to, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil in our verse. And what he says, he does this in a few places. What's the interpretation? What's the commentary? It's a great secret. Does that mean I don't know? Or does that mean it's too complex? Does that mean it's Kabbalistic? I don't know. Not Kabbalistic, but mystical. Yeah.
Isn't this a variation of when bad things happen to good people? I mean, trying to rationalize and not. I know the rabbi wrote a rabbi wrote a book about that, and I'm not exactly sure what he said, but that whole idea that uh, why bad things happen to good people.
Yeah. So what that rabbi said, Rabbi Harold Kushner said, in essence, of reducing it to oversimplifying it, perhaps, is that he doesn't know why the bad part happens, but he does know where he can find God. He can find God in all the wonderful ways that people treated their family during crisis and help them when people rise to the occasion. That's where God is found. And evil, the bad stuff is the bad stuff. It just is. It's not caused by God. It's there in the world. And that goes back to what Rabbi Malka reminded us of Isaiah, that it's there in the world. It's kind of like for those that,
But God had to create it if it's there in the world.
yeah, God create, yes, God created it, but we don't, there's no explanation, there's no rationale, there's no explanation given. It's there. It just is. The question from a theological point of view, says Kushner, is, well, what do we do with it? Now that it's there, it's not about why is it there? It's what do we do with it? What do we do with that's there? And that's where God comes into the picture. You could say that's also apologetic, right? That all this stuff is ongoing. Yeah.
That's
Anyway,
certainly where clergy comes into the picture.
as doing the evil.
No, as trying to find whatever good comes out of a bad thing
Right,
so that the people aren't totally demoralized.
right, right. Or individuals, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying it's a racket, I'm just telling you.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else in this section?
Yeah, Rabbi, I know you skipped over this, but entrust your affairs to the Lord and your plans will succeed. It sounds like Seventh-day Adventist. I mean, it sounds like a blind faith in God. I, I,
Yeah.
it's not practical.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a discussion around the word entrust. The word in Hebrew is gol, from galal. It means to roll over, to spread out. And I'm wondering if we could also read it as express yourself. to God, right? Express yourself, not praying for something, praying about something. This is this being honest, the idea with God, you can have an honest conversation with not worrying about the things we worry about when we speak with other human beings. And when you do that, when you're able to have that honest conversation, when you show all your cards, when you roll out your plans in front of God, then you are better able to succeed. That's how I'd like to understand that. Okay. But I understand what you're talking about. A lot of the things here in the background, Eileen, are the things that you and Art see up close in your neighborhood in Chicago, and many of us have been close to. People see in different faith traditions where, I don't have to do it. God will take care of me. Um, that's a reductionist kind of a approach to this kind of stuff. I don't really think that that's what this text means in any case. But there's a lot of parts in this whole section, the one that we did before as well, the previous chapter, that relate to people who don't play by the rules that those of us sitting around the table right now, the rules that we play by, honest work, putting in effort, respecting other people, not expecting gifts. Okay, anything else? Charles, would you like to read 8:13 for us?
I didn't have time to pull down the material, sorry.
Oh, okay. So, Megan, you want to read for us?
Better a little with righteousness than a large income with injustice. A man may plot out his course, but it is the Lord who directs his steps. There is magic on the lips of the king. He cannot err in judgment. Honest scales and balances are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are his work. Wicked deeds are, are an abandonment to kings, for the throne is established by righteousness. Truthful speech wins the favor of the kings. They love those who speak honestly.
You maybe perhaps add the next box as well, which probably should have been part of this as well.
The king's wrath is a messenger of death, but a wise man can appease it. The king's smile means life. His favor is like a rain cloud in spring.
Okay. So the shift from God being in the center of the previous section, the shift has gone from God to the king, to royalty. And this section would be called by many as to be the ideal royalty, the royalty ideal. And there's a direct relationship, as at least in the Israelite tradition, of royalty being an extension of God. In the way the priests are extension of God, in some way prophets are extension of God. Royalty is extension of the people living their lives according to God's laws, at least on paper. That's what it was supposed to have been, and it ended up in most cases not being that, which is the explanation as to why the whole enterprise failed in the first constructing the first temple, and also the non-existence of the second temple. So there's a lot of usage, as you can see, of the word mishpat in Hebrew, and staka, even yesharim, the same words, the semantic field, all having to do with organized society working, things working. It's not the focus here is not on the individual, but the focus here is on society.
Ketzim al Shaftei Melech.
Yeah, so I spent a bit of time on that. So for those that are looking, we're talking about the fifth verse, the fifth line, Kesem al Siftei Melech. In English, there is magic on the lips of the king. So magic is not really endorsed in in the Torah, right? And we
Right.
also have there's no text, there's no reference to magic used in the royal
Right.
courts, in in uh, in the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh. Um, it could have been, it would have been used in other courts, and perhaps it slipped its way in from a text, that was adapted from another tradition, Egypt or Mesopotamian tradition. Perhaps that happened. What Fox says here, he goes with as if it was ascertained by map. Kesem, meaning how you ascertain if something is the right way to do it, or not the right way to do it. And he just understands it as if you have to hear the king's words as if they'd been ascertained in this methodology that was well known in the ancient Near Eastern world of Kesem, what is translated magic, but of course it's not magic tricks. It has more to do with making decisions, or
This, this verse seems to be at odds with much of Israelite history, though. About he can't err in judgment
right.
of much of biblical history.
So one way to do that, one way to get around that is to say, well, this is speaking of the ideal, not necessarily what happened. And the other way of saying is that, well, this is an imported text from another culture, in which, I don't know. I would imagine all the royal cultures have their issues, but yeah, it is at odds with the bottom line of the edited version of the former prophets that we have, and most of the prophets, latter prophets as well. Yeah.
Certainly the pre-Enlightenment royalty of Europe and other places used verses like this to justify their being ordained by God, and therefore whatever they said was divine.
Right.
The divine right of kings.
Yeah, as was the case before the Middle Ages, right? And probably, I don't know, everywhere in the world, but certainly all of ancient Near East was like that. Absolutely.
But they didn't always refer to Proverbs or,
No, no. Although that would be an interesting question for study, right? Where does the book of Proverbs come up in Christian monarchies in the Middle Ages? That's like, I'm sure somebody's written a dissertation on that, right? How could somebody not, right? Yeah.
well, and didn't the New Testament, I mean, again, I don't know the New Testament, but doesn't the New Testament sort of poo-poo the right of kings, or they're not as, gung-ho about royalty as this verse is?
No, but that's also
Am I
because
reading it? Am I watching too many movies?
no, but it's because also Jesus is the king. I mean, it takes a while for that to come up, but yeah, if Jesus is Mashiach, Mashiach is the king. Mashiach, Messiah, is king. That is a royalty, and that kind of, in some ways, in that understanding of Jesus, is a return to what Samuel was talking about when he was against the people having a king. You don't need a king; you have God. And yeah, okay. Anything else? All right. Um, Unfortunately, my strength is waning. I apologize. I just don't know. What am I going to do about this? I've been schlepping this for a few days, and while I'm not sniveling right now, I'm great. So I'm gonna call it a day today, and we'll take a break for 2 weeks, um, next week and the week after. So even after Pesach, we'll take a break, and when we reconvene, we'll use the same sheet, uh, or at least we'll start from 1620. Um, want to wish everybody a meaningful Pesach. I hope it's a time of conversations, of modeling calm conversations about difficult things. And liberty is a difficult thing, because what is liberty for one person is sometimes and lately oft perceived as a lack of liberty for the other person. Right? And so I so wish you Hag Sameach and see you soon. Bye bye. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
Accept